about. What do the models suggest is the case if in a rules-based world, but the central banks are following different rules, say price level targeting versus inflation targeting, where the price level targeting would have more of that element that John was just talking about, sort of making things up later on. What do the models suggest in that case?
I myself have not specifically seen an example of that. My gut feeling is, at least in the class of ones I've worked with, something like the approach that John and I have discussed is going to continue to go through. Essentially, the Milton Friedman, there's a reason why you want a Nobel Prize. It's a brilliant insight, which is if you have some rigidity in the system and you've got capital flows and you've got a flexible exchange rate, that combination together in a lot of frameworks is going to give you a pretty good outcome. Again, Ann's point about fiscal dominance is very relevant, and John's point about the interplay of the financial system. So I have not seen them. Maybe I can piggyback a little bit on the prior discussion from Rich. I think John's point is very wrong. The tricky thing with QE of the scale and the scope that we saw is, there's not all that much precedent outside of wartime, and a lot of people didn't want to, including Ben, didn't want to evoke the fact that we did this after World War II. So I think the uncertainty is related to the fact that there's these balance sheets were enormous or are enormous, huge stocks, and we're still sitting here today in April of 2017, like 8 or 9 years after QE1, and there's still no crisp, detailed exit plan for the Fed. So in an old system, in a pre-07 system, John, you have a recession, you follow a Taylor rule, you cut rates, you have a recovery, you raise rates. Markets can sort of, and investors and wage setters can sort of figure what that is going to look like. But we're in a fully employed economy. Core inflation's at 2.1 on the CPI, and in April of 2017, we don't know the pace. We really don't know the starting point. We don't know the destination for the balance sheet. We don't know if it's going to be Another example. So the Fed likes to say that it wants to be both predictable and passive. But with regards to the mortgage portfolio, you can't be both, because the mortgage portfolio is going to roll off unevenly depending on the path of rates in the economy. So if you want it to be predictable, it won't be passive, and you want it to be passive, it won't be predictable. So I think that illustrates the big difference between a QE-based response and a rates-based response. I mean, it's a very good example of we don't really know how QE is going to work or be involved.
So I want to ask about how